Welcome to Tea Talk on the Pod, a roundtable of opinions and facts where politics are loud, news, it's sus, and the entertainment, it never stops. We have DeBoss, the pillar of substance and truth, Jinx, the voice of reason, wisdom, and a lot of sass, Lisa Z, the statistician of facts and tracks, and me, well, I'm T, the instigator, the protagonist, and I bring the heat, the heart, and the soul. Welcome to Tea Talk. I want to say hello and welcome to everybody to the first Tea Talk podcast. You're going to love this. It's going to be great. News, politics, everything that you want to know about. We have a fantastic panel, and I can't wait to get this going. And to kick us off tonight is my buddy, Jinx. Jinx, it's yours.
Thank you so much to our fearless leader. So in late April 2025, Shiloh Hendrix, a white woman from Rochester, Minnesota, became the center of a national controversy after a video surfaced showing her using a racial slur against a 5-year-old Black boy who happened to be on the autism spectrum. The incident, recorded by a bystander at a local playground, captured Hendrix repeatedly using the N-word and justifying her language by claiming the child had taken something from her toddler's diaper bag. Following the video's viral spread, Hendrix launched a fundraiser on GiveSendGo, a known facilitator of extremist crowdfunding. She cited fears for her family's safety due to online threats and the public release of her name, address, and workplace. The campaign accrued over $785,000 as of mid-May 2025. The fundraiser attracted significant criticism, particularly because donation comments included racist and white supremacist messages. In response, GiveSendGo disabled the comment section but left the campaign active. Co-founder and CFO Jacob Wells emphasized the platform's commitment to free speech and due process, stating that while they do not condone Hendrix's actions, they oppose cancel culture because it can cause the same level of damage as the initial behavior. The incident also spurred public protests and discussions about racism and accountability. The situation has ignited a broader debate on the ethics of crowdfunding platforms hosting controversial campaigns and the societal implications of financially supporting individuals accused of racist behavior. Before we get into the discussion, let's take a look at the video posted by the man who confronted Shiloh Hendrix at the park that day.
Call him a child? Did you call the child the word? It is my own business. You call him a Okay, why don't you have the boss to say it right now again? Okay. All right, that's what you say. Nobody dig into your
A little kid just did, you dumb.
That little kid, you call him a The little child?
What if he acts like one, he's gonna
Are you about to hit him? You chase him here?
He took my son's stuff.
So that gives you the right to call the child, 5-year-old, and the N-word.
If that's what he's gonna act
That's
like.
what you're gonna call him.
That's what he's gonna act like.
You know, that's a hate speech. And you can be recorded for that.
I don't give a
Huh. Okay, we'll see about that, what the internet has to say.
Who? Where did this come from? Why is this becoming the norm? Anybody?
The internet is why. Capitalism is why. And I don't think that it's anything new. We just know about it more. People are exposed more. And when you take hate that has started from the inception of the country and you bring it forward and you add a profit to it, you add revenue stream to it, there you go. In a country that puts capitalism above everything, perfect recipe.
I mean, it's pretty interesting how, these are things that have always been there. To Jinx's point, it's not as if I don't think anybody's surprised that it's said. I think that people are, because we're seeing it real time, because we're seeing it online, because there's a reaction to it. To be honest with you, the idea that people are supporting her is not surprising at all either. For everyone that supported her, she said what they want to say and either
Mm-hmm.
haven't had the opportunity to say or don't feel comfortable enough to say out loud.
100%.
Right? Don't believe me, just read the comments, right?
Right.
How
It
many
takes a
comments?
lot to cringe me, and every time I hear that, my soul cringes.
Huh.
It's bad enough to be saying it, but to be directing that to a 5-year-old child with autism is beyond the level of hate that I wish I had never seen
She
in
saw
this
nothing.
country.
She saw nothing but color. She didn't see a little boy. She didn't care that it was a little boy. She said one thing in the video. For those who haven't watched it or haven't seen it, go back and I want you to read. There was one particular line. She said, "If that's what he's going to act like."
I heard it.
He's a
So
It hit me
child.
the most. That's the part that hit me it hit me the most. Like it like the first time I heard it, I did this. Because think about the word, like the N word itself, like what it dehumanizes, right? That's not a
right,
human. And it's racial, superiority, right? I'm
yeah,
above you. How dare you touch my things?
right,
How dare you?
As
yeah.
if
Well,
the
and think,
child even knew what it was. Now you imagine that if that child is 5 years old and he's never heard that word or that phrase, 5 years old, and doesn't know what that means. Do you
yeah,
know the conversation that you're going to have and start having with a 5-year-old child and try with autism or that's autistic or has autistic tendencies?
mhm.
How you're going to explain to a 5-year-old innocent child, a baby.
How this is going on. So while the other parents are talking to their child about what that meant from the hate perspective, she's taking her child and children and teaching it.
Yes.
Hate is
Like
taught.
like real time. So if anybody wonders why the comments look the way they look, think about the evolution. She probably heard the same things when she was that age. So you have this progress to where makes a statement that she has defined in her head what the N word is and what it means to her, and it's all about the stereotypes, all about the racist tropes, and she lays it on anyone that looks based on it that way, and she's teaching her children to do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You would think as a human being and at her age that you hope in some form you have growth. She is a walking example of not growing mentally
Yeah,
Growth comes
at
from
all.
adversity. Growth comes from adversity, and I would hazard a guess that woman's never had to survive a thing in her life, and it shows. Or she has blamed everything bad that's happened on her life, because that's what I feel like is going on here, right? The whole dehumanization thing, that was the point back in the day when it started, right?
It
If you
makes me
want
want
to,
to say the connotation of who hurt you.
right. But it's
well,
not necessarily that they were hurt. It was just taught that that we are superior, we are better, right? And so we're allowed to look down on them throughout our history, right? She has
right.
an accent. I don't know what country she's from, but that was always the point. And there have been times in history where it has exploded and the hate was more palpable, and then times where it was tamped down. But I say that specifically, I use those words tamped down specifically because it never dissipated. It was just waiting
Right.
for an opportunity to present itself again.
100%. Well,
It's ugly.
think about the cycle, Lisa Jinx. Think about the cycle here. I mean, can we unpack this a little bit? Think about this. Whatever she does for a living, she doesn't leave those sentiments and her feelings at home.
Uh-uh.
Do you think she leaves that hatred and vitriol on the kitchen sink? The video shows she doesn't. She took it to a playground. So if she can take it to a playground, what does she do for a living? Who does she interact with? How does she feel about them? If she's in a position where she can impact something for someone of color, what is that impact? How are they impacted? Did they get what they paid for? Did they get the service that they're supposed to get? When you unpack all of this stuff and then you look at it and say, with all of that being said, she became a victim.
Right.
Yeah.
She became a victim.
Her consequences to her bad behavior has gifted her
Right.
$750,000. And that was just back in mid-May. It is most likely over $1 million now.
Because of her hatred, she was rewarded financially. She's had a platform for it. People are supporting it, and then they turn back around and say, "You guys need to get over it." It's like it's not over until it's over, and every time things happen, we know it's not over. Matter of fact, it's growing. Because you know the thing, it was that sentence and the fact that she was holding her child at the same time. If you had yourself a poster child for what we go through, take a screenshot of that and say that is the cycle that we have to teach our children exist, even if they don't know it exists at a young age. We have to think about this. There are movies you don't let your children see until they get an appropriate age. We don't have the right or the ability to wait that long
luxury.
to tell our kids this stuff exists. We have to bring them into R-rated content in real life at a young age. We wouldn't let them watch a movie like that, let alone have to tell them about what life's going to present them, even when they don't see it yet. And then somehow balance to say, not all white people are like that. You know, we have to do that. Do you think she's doing that? Do you think she's going to have a not all black people conversation with her child?
No.
She's going to have a those people conversation with her child.
Because to your point, like it didn't
The
matter,
other.
right? Like it didn't matter. Child, adult, it did not matter to her. Like it did not she did not give a crap. I don't
As a black parent, I don't know how you go about that at that age. I don't even I'll ask Michael.
I had the conversation not that young. To be honest with you, with my oldest, I had a conversation after a thing happened. You understand what I'm telling you? After a thing happened, I had to sit down and have the conversation. It wasn't like there was a date on the calendar. We got to have the conversation. Typically, you either want to wait until they get up a certain age where they're seeing more, typically middle school, because they're seeing more. But I had to have that conversation with my son in elementary school.
Yeah. Because you don't want to introduce the concepts before you have to. You don't want to rob them of their innocence. Once it's gone, it's gone.
And that's the thing, that sometimes there's not a luxury.
Right.
I have to say I had the luxury of not being called the N-word until I was a whole ass grown adult. I knew about it. I wasn't living in a bubble. No one had said it to my face. And I was at my local watering hole, what I was making a watering hole, and someone drunk and said it to my face. And I thought, first thing I thought was, where am I? I don't think I'm in Kansas anymore, Toto.
Right.
Was it a man or a woman? Was it a man or a woman?
A man.
Now listen. Let me show you what I just did. See that? I wrote man on this envelope. So, we've never had this conversation, right?
Wow.
I knew it was a man. You know why I knew it was a man?
Why?
Because the odds are it wasn't going to be a woman, because the man figures he has a physical advantage of saying it and getting away with it, because you were by yourself. You weren't with another man, and you definitely weren't with the black man when it happened.
Well, it was funny because I was with another person of color that this person I knew that person through this
Mm.
person. So
Mhm.
it was, but he had already shown disrespect for that person as well. So
There you
he
go.
had total disregard for both of us,
Yeah. It
and
wasn't strangers.
knew,
Mm.
not at all. So, you know,
This
but
also
even though I
rarely
had
is,
never
right?
had that experience in my life, I was a whole grown adult before I had that experience. It doesn't change the way you move and operate in the world.
Right.
It's literally like living in two, from me to you, like living in two parallel universes that do not mirror each other at all.
100%.
Mhm.
And the
So
dangerousness, sorry, Lise.
no,
But the
you're
dangerous
fine.
thing about what you just said, T, is folks that don't realize that they're living in a different universe than us.
That part.
That
Yes.
is so dangerous and so harmful, and so, talk about emotional and mental tax.
The meaning.
Like what? What's the problem?
Would it surprise you guys to hear that I was called the N-word when I was 11 years old by a couple cousins who knew more about my family history than I even did at that point, because it wasn't a thing, right?
Right.
And my great grandmother was Black, and they called her name was Henrietta, and so these cousins, I went over their house, they started calling me Henrietta N-word. And I'm like, why? Oh, that's a bad word. Why are they, because my mom, like, I didn't really know what the word meant, even at 11. But, my mom, said it's a bad word. It was
Right.
just a bad word. So why are they calling me a bad word? And I went
Right.
home, and my mom had to say the reason why they're doing that is because they're racist, and she had some choice words to say about them. And she said it's because they lived across the street. Their grandparents lived across the street from your grandparents. And
Mm.
so they knew that your great grandmother was Black, and that's why they're calling you that. And it's a horrific word, and nobody should use it. And they're using it because they're bad people. Like, and that's like the basic, conversation that she had with me. But yeah, like it's
How
like
old were they? How old were they?
11. I was like 10 or 11.
Oh, okay. Think. I want you guys to think about this.
Mhm.
What is your earliest childhood memory, Lisa? How old were you?
Maybe 6, 5 or
Six.
6.
Oh,
Hmm.
is that pretty standard for Jinx T? Pretty
Yeah.
much. I think for me too,
Hmm.
6 years old. So to be 11, take those first 5 or 6 years out because whatever they heard, they didn't remember.
Hmm.
From 6 to 11, around that time, they had seen enough, had gotten comfortable enough to be able to apply it in the right context at 11. You have
I never
5
thought
years. It
about it.
takes you 4 years to
I
go to
never thought
school to get a degree.
Mm-hmm.
By the time they were 11, they had mastered hate.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
They had to have somebody teach them. Not sometimes, a lot.
Yeah.
You got to get comfortable with it. You got to know when to use it. You got to know because you got to know why you're using it, because you're using it to hurt. So when we hear these stories, when I'm listening to your story, that's the first thing that popped in my mind. That when people try to say it didn't exist, it's not it's not. It's like think 11 years old, 11,
Yeah.
and
That
they couldn't even apply it looking at you, Lisa. They had to go. Somebody had to tell them your
It was
story.
their parents and their grandparents.
Yeah.
And the adults were calling me that too. It wasn't
Right.
just the kids, it was the
Well, there you
adults.
go. That one drop rule get you every time, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We were having this conversation a few months back when the young lady, and I'm going to stay on top of the young lady in Texas. You remember when she was in school and she was being bullied about being deported?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I asked the same question then. These same kids at the same age are taking that same rhetoric that they've been hearing, and they've learned to weaponize it. And the parents and the grandparents and the aunts and uncles, no one in their realm. Because listen, Lisa, let me ask you a question. You knew that your family or your family knew that other family members were racist.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody
Mhm.
stops it. Nobody allows the kids to, because they want to
Mm-mm.
perpetuate it and then put their hands behind their back as if they had
Mhm.
nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's
And
dangerous.
nobody, you know what? To your point, like it wasn't like my mom confronted their parents, and I still like went over their house. The tolerance, right? The tolerance
Mhm.
of it. Like why didn't and like, why didn't anyone like stick up for me? Like not even
Mhm.
my own parents, like why? And it was because I think at the time, especially because you're talking about 1986, 85, right?
Mhm.
Like the point of view of my cousins was the prevailing view, right?
Right.
Of a lot of white people
Mhm.
Mhm.
at the time. Like it was so acceptable to like, I mean, you look at movies and TV shows and stuff from back in that time period, right? There was
Mhm.
like a lot of racist stuff that just went on and it was acceptable. And so, yeah, like it wasn't even addressed. I just went home, like, why are they calling me this, right? Why are they calling me this bad name? It was explained to me, but nobody was confronted over it. Like my mom didn't go over, like she should have,
Mhm.
though, right? And now, like, it's just,
But this is 2025.
And what's
yeah,
Yeah,
going
I
you
on
know,
would
right
and
now?
think,
but we're
and you
going
would hope,
backwards. Yeah.
you would
Mhm.
think and hope that we as just humanity had progressed
You,
somewhere.
you,
What
T,
evidence do you have, though, T, to
But when you
suggest?
see that, you see, no, I don't. I
well,
don't. And that
ask
comes,
Lisa.
I'm seeing that comes from an ignorant place on my behalf. I
Well,
mean,
look to your right. Look to your right and ask Lisa where her cousins' ideologies are today.
The same.
Lisa,
Yep, they're exactly the same. They're
Yeah.
mega.
So
They're mega all the way, like mega. And I can tell, like, I don't, when I got old enough, I stopped hanging out with them, right? When I was
Mhm.
like maybe 16 or 17 and I got old enough to where I was like, you know, I'm not doing it. But it's funny because I did get a little bit of a payback, right? Some years later. This was probably about maybe 10 or 15 years ago. No, it was probably about 10 years ago. I happened to see one of my cousins, the one, she was my age. And I happened to see her. We were coming out of Kohl's or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, how you doing? You look so good." And she was like, "Lisa," she was like, did you get plastic surgery or what are you doing? You don't have a single wrinkle on your face and look at me. And I was like, "Well, Kim, black don't crack." And she was like,
I bet.
"Oh, yeah. Yeah." I just like speechless.
I
And
bet she was.
it was like
see how that
every, like
works.
the sun came out and the rainbow, like it was just amazing, like a great moment for me. And I just like walked away
I
and,
love that for you, Lisa. I
and,
love
and it
that.
was, yeah, it was healing. Do you know what I
or,
mean? Like it
or
was just so
liberating.
healing,
Yeah.
Let's,
liberating. Yes.
Yeah.
And we actually, me and my siblings and my family, we kind of like we retook the name of Henrietta. So every time we got an A in class, it was our Henrietta. It was Henrietta in the soul of Henrietta in embodying us and helping us, get the A, or if we got a job or whatever. It's like we recaptured what they tried to make a slur,
Mhm.
and
Right.
what they tried to
that
use
statement
to
you
put us
just made,
down.
the soul of Henrietta would make a great children's book. Like
Right.
literally, the soul of Henrietta. I can literally see that in animated fashion, the soul of Henrietta. And
Mhm.
yeah, I mean that could be a thing. I want to see where we are landing on the CFO that has given this a platform to accrued such an enormous amount of money and then get on national television and say that it's okay. Um, it's just a platform, but doesn't understand the platform that you have given to someone who has literally verbally abused a 5-year-old child
Mhm.
is gaining them wealth, and you're okay. with that. Where is it that you don't understand that you are facilitating that behavior? You are saying that that behavior to demean and harm, I'll say it out loud, harm a child is okay. And you can sit there on national television and defend that it's okay. Because clearly he's making tens of thousands of dollars. I don't know what his interest that he's garnering off of $750,000 or $1 million, but it's got to be in the tens of thousands if you're running a business. There has to be a percentage point that he's taking of that. My guess is going to be 20% to 30, my guess, but I don't know that. That's just a guesstimation on my behalf.
Well, I think, I mean, if you go back and listen to his statement, one of the words that he, again, you got to pay attention to the tropes, right? He used the word woke. He used the word cancel culture. So he's protecting himself by assimilating himself to the movement, to the ideology by using those terms. So he understands what he's doing as he takes the First Amendment and the free speech, and he puts penance of wokeness and those things around it. He understands what he's doing. He doesn't care. If he cared, there's an easy way to address that, right? There was an easy way to do. We don't tolerate that. We're not going to support that. End of discussion. No harm, no foul. I don't even think anyone would have broached it that there was somehow he was suppressing free speech. Listen. This is part of the Southern strategy, right? We really can't say the N-word anymore. That's why everyone's outraged that you said it. But we can say state rights. We can say woke. We can say DEI. We can say First Amendment, Second Amendment. We can scream these things to protect our hatred. And it's easy for him to do it when it's at the top. So that thing that someone else may see wrong, if it was acceptable in your household, will always continue to be the thing that you do. Lisa just explained her cousins. She real time. We just heard it real time.
Right.
So this CFO is the same. There's no difference. There's no disconnect. He just used different words, right? Lisa's cousins at 11 didn't say N-word, states' rights, freedom of speech. Right? They didn't do that. Now that they've evolved, they're not saying it all the time that way, but they're using these things, again. So
Michael,
like
just not to interrupt you, but where's the fine line between I'm going to give her a platform to be hateful and to make an enormous amount of money versus I'm all for free speech.
Right.
But free speech does come with consequences. Why is that not pinging along the line over the lines of hate speech and inside? Because you can't just, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater room. So where's who gives the comeuppance for that?
The goalpost is always moved by white America, T. Think about it. You go online right now and find pictures of white America standing around the lynching of a black man, and you look at the picture and there's adults and children smiling. So that line has been moved now, right? Like that's not acceptable, right? We can't do that anymore. But we can't say the N-word anymore. But we can say, I just said it, we can't say state rights. We can't say DEI. We can't say wokeness. We can't say cancel culture because that's the cloak of the behavior. So the line will always be moved. Listen, 5 years from now, we won't be talking about DEI anymore. We won't be talking about woke anymore. It'll be something else. It'll be another word. It'll be another phrase. It'll be another demon. Is that right now we're moving away from DEI and woke, and now we're getting into black fatigue. Now we're getting into these other. It will always evolve because hatred will always need a place to exist because we give it oxygen. They give it oxygen. They want it. See, nobody does something that they don't want consistently.
True.
Who does that?
Do you
And what's
think,
their motivation?
Michael, our move away from DEI, is it because people debunk and expose the dog whistle? Is
Yeah,
that what
well,
it is? And they have
Part
to
of it.
find something new?
yeah, I mean, and Jinx was saying it's part of it, but I think the other part is it won't have all of these things lose their effectiveness over time.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Mm-hmm.
got to find something else.
Yeah, because it still translates. You just gotta wait for the lingo to catch up, right? You gotta like for the new lingo to catch on. And I think the common thread here, we started off this conversation with what has led us to this point
Mhm.
where we are now crowdfunding racism and hate. I think it's the same thing that it's always been through history. It is speech.
Mhm.
It is the speech leads to the action, right? So
Absolutely.
before anybody lynched someone, they talked about it. They talked about
Mhm.
it amongst themselves. They may spitballed some ideas. Before
Mhm.
anybody got together and said, you know what, we got all this land, but I'm not going out there and picking up cotton. How are we gonna do this? You know what?
Mhm.
And that the idea gives birth to the words, which is why our other fearless leader is always saying, watch your words. The idea gives birth to the words that gives birth to the action, to it coming
Mm.
into being.
Jinx, I'm gonna pose it this way. I've heard somebody use this and tell me this before. The most dangerous place on earth for a black man
Mm-hmm.
is in the mind of a white man.
Mm-hmm.
It's
And
exactly what Jinx just said. It's literally
mhm.
what she just said.
Can you say that again, Michael,
The
please?
most dangerous place on earth for a black man is in the mind of a white man.
Mm.
Or
Because what
woman.
she just
Mhm.
said, the ideology shapes the action, right? And so if somebody doesn't think about you in a certain way or believes that you're this thing or desires a certain end result, if that's the thought, now they're just trying to figure out how they're going to get there.
You have to understand how I feel. I don't want to make this about me. I
No, you
feel
would
it.
never.
I feel
Mm-hmm.
embarrassed. I feel embarrassed
Mm-hmm.
as a white guy sitting here in a lot of ways in my ignorance, never really understanding. I didn't know how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You're all
That
right, man.
people have to go through life always feeling as if they're second to someone else.
Well, you know what? Let me
I
say
can't
this.
imagine that. And I'm not trying to make this about me because it's not
No, you're not.
about me.
I don't think
But
I
I'm
don't think that way.
embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. I don't even know. I have pretty good vernacular. I don't really know what the word is that I'm trying to say that this conversation
Well, let me ask you a
makes
question.
me feel like.
No, and I listen. Let me ask you a question. And this is where it gets people kind of get a little weird when I say this. Where would you have learned this from? In your life, Lisa only learned it because she dealt with her cousins. But I mean, where do you learn? You can't learn all things about all people all the time. The schools didn't teach it in any meaningful way. Your history class, your U.S. history class, never went more than 2 inches deep in this subject. Where would you have
Sure.
learned it at that point? Jinx, where would any we've learned a lot of it because it was our life experiences, and our parents taught us because they were teaching us so we were aware, so we
Correct.
could be woke around because that's where woke came from.
Yes.
But anyone outside of any other community, I couldn't tell you what's going on in the Asian American community to the point where I have to go study. I gotta
Absolutely.
go. So don't feel bad about not knowing these things in depth because where would your experience come from? The
Right.
problem is when America doesn't want to listen when we tell it,
Right.
right? That's the problem because now you don't want to listen to it. You know it exists. I've said this all the time. You know it exists. You may not know the depths of it, You may not know the depths of it. You may think when you hear it that that's a one-off person. You may not even understand the totality of the condition. But once you learn it, that's when you're accountable. That's why they don't want to teach it. Because if you teach it, now you're accountable. If Lisa's cousins would have been taught that what they were saying was wrong, the odds that they continued to do it were slim to none. It's just
Hearing something and listening is
it's
two
two different
completely
things.
different things.
But
And now
instead
they're
of,
trying to take that away because they
yes,
want to change history. They want to whitewash it, no pun
they don't
intended.
even want it out there. Lisa,
Mhm.
listen, Lisa just told you her parents told her one thing, her uncles and aunts and grandparents told
Mhm.
her other cousins and family another. Same family.
Mhm.
The end results are stark, but they're there. Lisa's not the only one. She may be one of the few that want to talk about it.
Right.
She's not the only one. Shiloh came from that. She's not the only one. She wasn't even fearful of the camera, T.
No,
She wasn't.
she just kept on.
Right.
Well, she made the crowdfunding site saying protect my family. They're trying to cancel me. Like she's was some kind of victim after the fact. And it's something I'm just like thinking of.
It's
Like
almost like it's emboldening to them now.
Yes.
It's
um,
absolutely, which is what we were
it
afraid
is.
when all this started in
Hmm.
2015.
15. Mhm.
Right, right. Because the thing is though, it's like the dog whistles, right, also enabled this, right? The George W. Bush, policies and
Ronald Reagan,
the
Richard
war
Nixon.
on drugs and
Mhm.
the super predator and the fight against affirmative action, right? If it was
Mhm.
affirmative action, it was unfair, right? And then the Supreme Court knocked that out. Then it was DEI. Like you had like the dog whistles.
I was just going to say there's a difference between guilt and accountability,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
Like they don't want to teach it because of what you said earlier. They don't want to be accountable for now knowing it. So if I don't want to feel guilty, then I don't want to know about it. And I just want to keep retelling history the way I want it to have been, which absolves me of responsibility.
Mhm.
When folks aren't asking you to feel guilty, they're just asking you to stop perpetuating the hate.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. It's so funny that just stop. But the ideology and what you think that the hate brings you, right? No teacher handed you a test or a quiz and expected you to do well without teaching you the curriculum, or they wanted to give you the quiz to see what you knew, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no expectation that I'm gonna give you the final for chapter 10, but we don't go over anything in chapter 10.
Yeah.
Like that's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So this ideology of hate, if I teach you that it's wrong, then the test end results will be you won't do it. But if I never teach it, then you're not accountable to it. And then we
Yeah.
can disguise it with whatever we want to. We can call
Mm-hmm.
it
And the
DEI.
level
We can
of
call it.
hate that's going on right
That's
now
what's going on.
in
Don't
this
tell them.
country, I never, ever. I mean, I go through life and do my jam. We all go through life doing their jam. I've never, ever seen this level of hate. And I know there was lots a long time ago, but I can only give reference to what I know in my span
Sure.
of time. I have never seen so much hate. Hate. And I do not understand that even a normal thinking person does not know the amount of energy and literally internal destruction that it does to you to carry around that much hate for another person or another race or anything.
Mm.
It is so self-consuming to carry that much hate and bitterness And it's beyond me. While adult people don't have the common sense anymore to say, I'm not going to be in that. I'm not giving myself to this level of division and hate and harm.
Here's why I push back. D. Here's why I will push back. We know it exists. We're seeing it in real time. It doesn't surprise our community at all. It doesn't. But I will say this: I don't believe that. I believe that the average person does feel that. I do believe that that pushback is there. I think the numbers show it. Um, we would love it to be absolute, right? But it exists. But I want to go back to something that you said earlier. We did not grow up. I did not grow up. I can't speak for everyone. Jinx can jump in here. I did not grow up feeling second class about anything because of hate, because of racism. I didn't. I just didn't. That's why we educate our kids.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not learned. And everyone doesn't get that education. So they're not left to their own devices to feel that way. So because I never felt, I've seen it all. I've heard it all. But it never made me feel inferior, not once. It may have pissed me off, but it
Right.
didn't make me feel inferior. It just didn't, because you get built for these things that you have to go through. Think about having a child, and at some point in your life, you're going to have to sit down and explain this very difficult part of existence in life. And they have to get it. Because for our parents to teach us at that time, it was about life and death. It wasn't about, just know what it is. What do you think coming home before the lights came on, right? And not being on the other side of the tracks and all those things that our parents taught us, those were real life things that were happening.
A lot of times it's not about it doesn't make us feel, like you said, Michael, bad about who we are. It just makes you aware with what you're dealing with, because you can handle what you understand. At least that's how I am. And a lot of times I think just slightly adjacent to hate is fear, right?
I was just about to ask you guys, what
But
part of the hate is actually fear?
right. So there's hate coming from fear, close kissing cousins. But then even more on the other side, adjacent on the other side, I think is righteous indignation. I don't think these people are out here just being hateful. They are being told through what? Speech. They are being told that they are in danger. And that is the lesson that has been fed to them since this all began, since they called the savages, since they made Birth of a Nation and perpetuated this idea. And once they couldn't get along with it, like you said, Michael, it's moving the goalposts. Once they couldn't get away with being like, okay, they're savages and they're just, okay, well, maybe they're not animals, but then they move on to something else. And why is it? So you're being programmed to be fearful. And if what you're not afraid you're going to lose, you are angry that you have lost, right? Why? So that you can move and operate in a way that allows you to have comfort in this world, which what equals comfort in this world? Money and power.
Money and power. Somebody told you that dog bites, that dog bites, that dog bites, that dog bites, that dog bites. And you go by one day and the dog gets out and the dog walks up to you and he licks you and he's wagging his tail. You're like, the dog's not violent. This dog didn't bite me, right? After that, once that happens, all of that's gone.
Right.
Now you start thinking about the source that was telling you that thing. And now that source is not as credible. So now you start to go back and try to rethink everything. That is what they're trying to prevent. Because if you do that, then the source isn't credible anymore. That's why they're trying to get this stuff out. CRT, all this stuff. They have to demonize it because you can make anybody move by fear. You can make anybody move by fear. All you got to do is find out what scares them. If I find out that you're afraid of anything, T, I can move you by that,
Absolutely.
right?
Mhm.
Even if I create the fear,
Quick.
then someone like Shiloh Hendrix gets to hold her daughter or her son up, point down, speak down, and look down on the 5-year-old that she's going to continue to tell her child, this is the way you do it.
Yeah.
So that child she's holding, we will be seeing that behavior again unless something changes.
That's why they're trying to get everything out of the schools, because they don't want their little white kids coming home naysaying what they've been teaching them in the house, right?
Right.
So they don't want nobody coming home. Oh, mommy, Martin Luther King Jr. did this and that. He was a great man, and he was a great man for this country.
Hell
No.
no.
President Barack Obama, right? Did this
Hell
and this
no.
and that. No.
So,
Hmm.
so the ability. So when you tell the story about your father and how you can deconstruct your father, and he's 87, also tells people that it can happen, and they don't want that to happen either,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Because to deconstruct anybody from anything, intervention is what we're calling it today, right?
Right.
Hmm.
It takes a lot of work, and when that person
It
goes
does.
through that, now they have a story to tell. Now they can evangelize all the lies and all the things, right? And when somebody goes through it, no matter what they're going through, they're champions about it, right? Somebody that's obese and they lose weight, they're a champion about health and fitness and eating right, right? That's what happens. They
Hmm.
don't want that. They don't want white
Yeah.
people champion the truth in the history. And they don't want. They already know we know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a surprise to us. They know that.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Plus,
keeping they're keeping their own in the dark because the hate is where just like Jinx said earlier, that it's easier to get people to move by fear and hate than it is by love and by understanding and by acceptance. It's easier. 5 years. How many times have we had a conversation where we have to listen to white America say free Derek Chauvin?
Right.
Because George Floyd, he was a criminal.
mm-hmm.
You know, or Daniel Penny,
Mm-hmm.
he raised just as much money as Shiloh did,
Right.
or Kyle Rittenhouse. We have to accept all of the things about an individual get put on our community, and we're supposed to just accept it. But if we push back, somehow we're being a victim.
Right.
Somehow we're fear mongering. Somehow we're just shut up and dribble.
Mm-hmm.
Just go home. He wasn't that important anyway. That's the
Mm-hmm.
message. That's the messaging that we
Right.
have to. That,
He
that we
was
have
he
to.
was expendable.
He was
Yep.
expendable. He didn't matter.
Right.
He didn't.
Yeah.
Regardless of what his history was, that's just kind of what happens to you guys.
Yeah.
And if he wasn't a criminal, it wouldn't happen,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
Even when you have somebody just taking a knee.
Can't even take a damn knee,
Let
right?
me tell you what he was. He was still a soul.
Yep.
He was still somebody's brother. He was still some mother's kid. No matter how old you get, you're some mother's kid. Somebody
Right.
loved. Somebody loved him.
100%.
Somebody gave space for him in their life.
Right.
He took
Hmm.
up space in people's life because they loved him.
Right.
But we don't talk about that.
Because they didn't
No.
love them. They didn't love their child the way we love ours, speaking as the white person. They're different, right? They're different. They're just, those
Right.
people, they're just different. They
Yep.
think different. I mean, they they put all that seasoning in their food. I mean, they're just different.
Thank God.
And the sad part about it, here's what I'll say, because I know we're having this
I will
conversation.
personally take the seasoning and I'll just eat the tongues before and after. But I'll take the seasoning.
Good living.
100%.
At the end of the day, and I think this part gets left out of this conversation a lot. During the civil rights movement, there were a lot of white folks that marched with black folks. during the BLM protest. There were a lot of different cultures and races out there protesting. So from that perspective, all is not lost. But why I've always said this, you guys have heard this said a lot of times. Black people and brown people will never defeat racism. White people need to be on the front line of racism.
That's right. That's
mean,
They
right.
have to be ready to call a thing a thing.
I mean, where else does that logic not apply?
And it has to
that's
come
what
from somebody. Yeah. So it's like if a black person starts talking about racism, then you're playing the victim, right? But if a white person starts talking about racism, right, then the other white people will listen because we'll be like, oh well,
More
and
credible.
that's the point. We're more credible, right? Because we don't have skin in the game, right?
right.
But we do have. This is the thing that they don't realize is that we all have skin in the game, right? We all have skin in this game, and that's what they need to realize. That's what we need to convey.
Uh-huh.
You know, we all are affected by this. Like things are going to get like if you, they don't know what ugly is, right? They don't know what hate is and what fear can lead to, but we do because we actually studied the history, right? And we actually know where this kind of thing leads.
Right.
And it's like they think it's not going to touch them. That's the thing. They think it's not going to touch them.
Well, Lisa, I'll say this. And when people watch this podcast, some people are going to call it race baiting, whatever. But the one moment where black and brown people thought maybe, just maybe, there's this curve that we're going to hit was during 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and this is sad, but this is true. You talk to the average black person, they'll tell you what I'm about to tell you. For that moment, the heat wasn't on us.
Mm-hmm.
For that split moment, what the majority thought was America, we were included at the expense of another marginalized group. That's the sad part. But in the moment, I remember saying it myself. I remember driving saying, I'm not worried about being the focus of attention when I'm driving right now.
Mm-hmm.
Say, Jinx, am I saying anything wrong?
No. I mean, I just was thinking it was probably absolutely was the only time in my lifetime where it felt like we were all American.
Yep. You know, the George Floyd thing with his knee on his neck is the actual, what most minorities like, just, can you just get your foot off of our neck?
I have a hard time saying it since George Floyd because it almost feels flippant, even though it's something that we were pointing. But to see it happening in real time, something that we have said metaphorically that our ancestors had to live literally.
Yep. And to see it real time, to see a metaphor come to real life,
right before your eyes,
and play it out in front of you. So now it became from a metaphor. Now it became real. Get your foot, get your knee off of my neck.
Phantom, can you play? I want you to play both the videos. I want you to play 1 and 2 back to back because I want to talk to you guys on the other side of this about something that I just heard. You know how you have virtue signaling, vice signaling,
or anything that you've just said. She's just a racist, isn't she? You wouldn't dispute that.
It's not about her. It's not about her. It's about
it is about her
coming together and supporting another white person. And it doesn't matter.
Why would you want to support a white racist?
Because I want to support free speech, and you cannot have free speech in a country.
No, that's fine. You can support free speech, but you also have to be accountable for what you say. She is. I mean, would you use the N-word out of interest?
Yes.
You would.
I do quite frequently.
You use the N-word quite frequently. Well, why? Other than the fact you're a despicable racist. Are you?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to say that I agree that virtue signaling went too far, that political correctness went too far, But we're going from virtue signaling being the norm and being praised to now vice signaling being the norm and being praised. It's not just a matter of does this woman have the right to use that word? I believe that she has the right. I disagree with it. But is she now being rewarded with $500,000? Why are we rewarding people for performing vice instead of virtue? This is not healthy. This is destructive to our society. This is destructive to our social fabric, to our culture, to our ability to live with other fellow Americans. It's gross to reward someone for bad behavior. It's one thing to tolerate it, to say that she has the right to do it, but she called an autistic 5-year-old the N-word. Like, I'm sorry, but I feel like we're kind of like missing the point in the actual context. You can say that it's part of this bigger meta story of black and white America, but it actually is just like a short little clip, and you don't even know the context of it, and it's actually gross, and if we can't just say that it's gross and bad, then I don't really know where we are.
I think
About that, like vice, like that, it feels like she really kind of encapsulates what they're doing. It's like they're trying to one up each other. Shiloh was out there just, throwing the N-word around to a little boy. And then this white, young white woman influencer got up there and she wanted to one up her. Oh, I can do you one better. I can admit to being a racist right on national television. I mean, what?
I have
I'm
never
glad
seen
that
anybody so happy to display that they have an absolute black soul in my life. I know no other way to say that. I've never seen someone so happy and so giddy that the veil has been lifted. Permission has been given for you to be the ugliest human that you could possibly be, and then be to anybody that it may hurt and that it may harm. There is no other selves in that. It's all about her and what she thinks is now okay and who she thinks it's okay to be, and wants others to perpetuate that behavior. A house divided will fall. I want to say that one more time. A house divided will fall.
Did it sound
And we're
like
all in the same house together. Whether you want to believe that, whether you want to accept that or not, we are all in the same house together. And if that house collapses in on itself, all of us, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, we will all feel the repercussions of that?
You know what, T? I would want to agree with you. However, there's a certain population in this country that is not in the house, will not come in the house. They will burn that house down with those that feel the way you do, being in there with us in it.
Mm-hmm. And even some of their own in it. Even some of their own.
Sure we don't get out, they will burn your ass with it.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why I'm saying this. Piers Morgan has sat on TV night after night after night after night and straddled the fence, more on the right, about all of these issues. He's apologized for Trump over and over again, and you're taken out of the context. He only comes to the table when there's nowhere else to sit. Meaning, if there's nowhere else to move in the comment, he'll address it. But if he finds any wiggle room in there, that's where he lives. Okay? The guy that was right next to him, which I don't remember his name, he's even worse. Because he's apologizing for the behavior. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. If you have somebody like the I don't even know her name, who was just blatantly being racist, all she needs is comfort. All she needs is a safe space to say it, confirmation from the guy next to Piers Morgan, and Piers to provide a platform where they're comfortable enough to say it. If you notice, Marcus is in the middle of the screen. Didn't bother him at all.
He tried to get her to say it on national television.
Yes, but even the
And
woman that
Marcus
spoke
yelled
out,
and said no, because he's the one that will have to land on, and he will have to be the one that carries that.
Correct.
right. And so Even
That
the
in
ones to
that
the far
instant
right
was
that started
nothing but
speaking out about it.
clickbait. That
Say
was
again, I'm sorry.
clickbait. That was 57 minutes of clickbait.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Marcus is in a tough spot. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. One of us represents thousands of us, especially in the media. If he doesn't denounce it with fervor that we're expecting him to,
Right.
he may lose a part of our community because we don't think he hit it hard enough.
Right.
But it's not really who should have hit it harder is Pierce, the lady on the far right. She spoke about it. She did call it disgusting, but she didn't approach it with the venom that it deserved. And again, I'm not downing her. What I'm saying is, it sounded as if she were talking about a disgusting entree.
The woman who did
Right.
speak out against it,
Yes.
I
And I'm not.
liked her approach.
Well, here's the thing. I liked her message, but what I'm saying is, people that are on the fence, if it's so despicable, then say it's despicable. If it's so despicable, then pound the table about it. If it's so despicable, take a more direct approach, because if Marcus does it, the message is lost because he's angry. Although he has every right to be angry. And then the guy on his our left, his right.
Right.
I don't know if he was on the clip, but he was speaking completely. He was siding with the racists.
Correct.
Yeah. When you
And
watch
he's
the
got
whole
a darker
thing, yeah.
hue. He's got a darker hue. So who are the people that are looking to have no accountability? Who are they listening to in that entire segment? Who are they going to listen to?
Yeah.
I don't know what to do, because he said it's not an issue. She said it's not an issue. Nobody really seemed pissed off
The
about
pretty
it.
blonde girl has given us all permission.
The reason I liked it was because she's speaking to her people. And
understand that.
because we are always called aggressive and chastised for like, why, can you just calm down? Can you just relax?
Right.
I feel like for her to have gone bonkers may have been like, see, she's just like them.
She's
That's why she
triggered.
doesn't like
Yep.
it. She's
Oh, look,
triggered.
she's
She's
triggered.
just like that. She's
She's a
a
lefty.
bleeding
She's a
heart liberal.
lefty.
She's a left-wing lunatic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
But
you're
she's
right.
like, no, I'm going to speak clearly. I'm going to speak softly, and you're going to hear me. Right? This
The
is
way
what I'm
Danny
saying.
would do it.
Right.
Jinx. But even that's a stereotypical trope.
It is. But whatever,
Yeah.
at some point, you got to get the message across.
Yes,
I think that
100%.
I would rather she lead with what's going to reach most of her people because they stayed around to listen versus being like, "Ugh, whatever, just one of those bleeding heart liberals.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I can understand that. But think about that whole cycle. Think about what we just said. We have to measure that in
Mm-hmm.
order to get our message across.
Mm-hmm.
If she's articulate, as if we can't
Yep.
be.
Yep.
If she's angry, because if
Yep.
she's angry, she's like them, meaning she's
Yep.
over there.
100%.
So she can't be angry about racism because she's white, because if she is, she's just like them.
I wanted to speak something into you, T, and you, Lisa, and anyone else who feels similarly, who is of a similar melanation.
You.
Hue.
Ellen.
Melon.
Melanated challenged or whatever.
Yeah, right. So I appreciate and I love your heart, and I appreciate how moved you are by all of this, and being willing to have these discussions and just to be very transparent and authentic in how you're receiving the information. But I want to encourage you, because you being here, being willing to have this conversation in this podcast is giving a voice to those like you who don't know how to engage in these conversations. Right? You're taking the hit, so to speak, and you're able to be vulnerable in a way that maybe they either aren't allowed to, don't have space to, or don't have it within themselves to at the moment. And so I want to encourage you, because I think you will encourage others to listen with a different heart and with a different ear and a different intention, so that while Danny always says we may not come to agreement, we can at least get a little bit closer to understanding.
Well said.
Very well said.
Well
Thank
said.
you, James.
So
Thank
I will now, I will read. This is a poem that came out right around the time of George Floyd, and it's called A Black Walk. I took a black walk this morning. I took a black walk through a white neighborhood. When I take black walks, I think black thoughts. I am conscious of where I've placed my gun, and my gun. I mean my phone, my wallet, and my keys. Because peace officers have a hard time telling the difference. I rehearse what I'll say if a concerned resident or a law enforcement employee has questions about why my black body is walking through their white space. And I remind myself to make sure the law enforcement employee has his body camera recording. Sometimes it helps if there's video evidence to accompany the hashtag. There's no way to be stealthy when you take a black walk. White neighborhoods are blanketed by a sophisticated security system comprised of nosy neighbors, Ring doorbell cameras, and white women walking their dogs. So I've learned to notice the white world through my periphery, to be aware of the dangers without acknowledging them. There is an art to making white people feel safe, to say good morning and flash a smile that shows confidence and deference at the same time, to be polite because your life depends on it. I felt the squad car behind me before I saw it. It moved deliberately, not like the other cars mindlessly whizzing past. Its tires inched, crept, stalked their way towards me. I kept walking. Don't take your hands out of your pockets, I thought. Or wait, maybe I should. Maybe it's better if my hands are clearly empty. But it's cold outside. Maybe it's nothing. Keep walking. The car rolled past me and made a slow right turn. I glanced quickly, but didn't stare. The air is still. My ears tuned out everything but the slight scuff of my sneakers on the sidewalk and the fading sound of those stalking tires. Almost there. Suddenly, the squad car reemerged. It was a block ahead of me. It made a quick right turn, continued to the end of the street, and then waited. No more stalking. This was a show of force. This was a roar. This was a reminder that I was trespassing. I kept walking. As I approached the corner, the front window began to roll down. The occupant didn't speak, didn't smile, just stared. I was being warned. I crossed the street, and the lion trotted off. He had effectively marked his territory. The brave protector had done his job. I, however, couldn't help but wonder what I'd missed during my black walk. It's hard to hear the birds chirping or to smile at the squirrels playfully darting along the branches when you're on a black walk. It's easy to miss the promise of a light blue sky or appreciate the audacity of the red, yellow, and purple daisies declaring their independence from the green grass when your mind is preoccupied with black thoughts. I took a walk through a beautiful neighborhood this morning, but I missed the whole thing.
For the average person, they always overlook one thing. Just ask yourself, if you have never had to have that talk with your white son or your white daughter, don't you find that interesting? And isn't that something you want to really dig into instead of just dismissing it to, well, they're probably because, well, if you do the right thing, then nothing will happen. That's not reality. That's not the world we live in. That's not the country that was created. That's not the criminal justice system that was created. And if we continue to not want to unpack that, there's components of that black walk we will never get rid of.
I want to say thank you to everybody. I hope everyone that has watched the kickoff for Tea Talk will be repeat offenders and keep coming back. I want to thank Lisa Z. I want to thank DeBoss. I want to thank Jinx. But most of all, I want to thank Phantom. None of this would be possible if it wasn't for Phantom. He is our tech guy, our IT guy. He is the guy, and he is the one that has made Tea Talk possible to come to you. I hope this will be a learning experience for all of us. I hope that everything that is discussed, we all take something from it, and I hope that it makes us all better people, a better individual, and I hope that we can take that betterness and spread it around to others and let them know everyone is welcome here. Again, I want to thank you for Tea Talk, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, it's me, Phantom, the IT guy, reminding you to hit the like, share, and subscribe button below this video. And don't forget to leave your questions and comments for us down below. We'll select a few questions or comments to share and answer on our next show. Thanks again for watching, and keep an eye out for our next episode.
3, 2,